Good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Flaherty. I'm at the Army Heritage Educational Center. This is one of the coolest places in South Central Pennsylvania because if you come here, the U.S. Army has constructed some type of setting or war setting for every war that we fought in the history of the United States, going back all the way to pre-U.S. with the French and Indian War. There's a setting here: Revolutionary War, War of 1812, World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, and all the way up to the Persian Gulf War. So today we are standing in front of a fire base, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And we're going to talk about its use in Vietnam and how it helped our soldiers to fight this war. So remember that Vietnam was originally a war that was fought differently than any other war. In other words, it was jungle warfare. Our troops are fighting guerrilla war. They're going out into the jungle on search and destroy missions, trying to engage the Viet Cong in the jungle in their setting. So frequently they needed the help of the artillery to provide them with some type of fire support because of the fact that they didn't have large numbers, not like World War I, World War II, where we're sending entire infantries in after them. We're actually sending smaller numbers of troops out. So in support of that, what the military did is they set up these mobile fire support bases, temporary support bases, to help the infantry. So you can see here in a minute, as we turn around, how they're set up. They're set up, they're dug up with the elevated ground surrounding the base. And typically what you would see is 3 or 4 of these mobile artillery units. There's one here on the right. Now typically this beautiful tree, which will be filled with leaves in a few weeks, wouldn't be there, but this is a lightweight M102 howitzer, and over here on the left is a much heavier M101 howitzer. We were first introduced to the M101 howitzer during World War II. It was also used during the Korean War and initially in Vietnam. The problem with the M101 is that it's much heavier. It's harder to pull. During World War II, it would have been pulled by trucks from site to site. It has a firing range of over 12,000 feet, but it's pretty big and it's very heavy. So as a result, in Vietnam, the fact that they're out in the middle of nowhere and they have to be ready to move very quickly, it's not very practical. So by the early 1960s, it's going to be replaced by the M102. The M102 is much lighter, which makes it much more maneuverable. It can be dropped into a fire base by a helicopter, which the M101 could not. And I'm going to show you in a minute that this particular howitzer has the ability to provide a 360-degree firing range. So in its rear, it has a small turret which allows it to be shifted and to move, all right, protecting the base, all right, from all angles. So if you can imagine that if you put 3 or 4 of these howitzers into a temporary support base, support firing base, it would provide you with an ample support. So they would fire in support of our infantry, and it would enable our small infantry troops to often fight off the Viet Cong that often had numbers 3 to 4 times what those units were made up of. Behind the M102, you can see a guard's security firing nest. There would be 2 or 3 guards up there looking out for reconnaissance and protecting the base from up above. In the center is what is called the hooch of the base, but it is nothing more than a barracks for the troops, and inside there'd be a couple beds. Usually there's a meeting table and so forth, but nothing really of any substance. They're living a very sparse life. These are temporary bases. They're not meant to be places where they're going to spend a great deal of time, and they have to be ready to move very quickly. So this is the gist of the base. One of the things that they did find as it went on, you can see how popular this is. There's a family walking, dog, beautiful sheepdog. Is that the military realized that as they fired, that it's very easy for the troops to scatter when they're first hit with artillery. So one of the things that they did, and you can see this behind in the background through the trees, is they developed this concept called time on target. So as the troops would begin to fire with the artillery guns, they would also coordinate that with several other types of attack. One of those being planes, one of those being rockets propelled from the helicopters, so that the enemy was being hit from several different spots at the same time and didn't have time to escape the attack. So there it is. That's a little presentation on, a little talk on the fire base setup and the artillery support that it provided for our infantry during Vietnam. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll be back again later to look at other setups at the Army Heritage Educational Center. See you next week.